guys, welcome to another episode of the e-commerce lab by Ecomcy, the place for everything related to Amazon FBA, private label, and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, your host, founder, and CEO of Ecomcy. And today I bring you another special guest. His name is Stef. He's one of the co-founders of Operator One, which is one of the top agencies in the space, actually operators as well, when it comes to helping you succeed, when it comes to taking your brand and expanding into multiple, basically, channels and regions. So, and that's why I wanted to bring Steph today, because he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to this. And we know lately one of the number one topics that we've been discussing in this space is expansion. We need to understand how to expand, and not only expand in different regions, but also different channels. And that's what Steph, with his company Operator One, specialized on. So Steph, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show, my friend. How you doing?
Thanks, Vincenzo. Thanks for being here, and I'm looking forward to sharing some insights about how to further develop your business.
Thank you, Steph. I think before we jump into all the amazing insights I'm sure you're going to share with your amount of experience when it comes to expansion, let's dive in a little bit about on the topic of who is Steph, how you got into basically the journey of founding Operator One, and then of course we dive into the topic. Yeah.
Now, Vincenzo, well, let's start from the basics. So I'm from the Netherlands, making this call from Italy. Been in the Amazon and e-commerce space already for 30 years. So a bit of a dinosaur in the industry. A lot of has changed in those 30 years. Some things become more easy, some things become much more complex, such as advertising. And the majority of these years I was working as an interim manager, basically working inside the companies to look at that. Are you able to sell to the European consumer with a local experience, which is crucial, so you get logistic support, etc. And then you realize that nobody is able to do it on a professional level because of time, culture change, and everything. Yeah. So that's basically why I launched a company. We designed the infrastructure on a European level ourselves, and now we offer it as a service, so companies don't need to do those investments themselves. So basically, we manage everything end to end, from import of record to merchant of record and everything in between. And yeah, so that's in a nutshell, my background and what we do today.
Thank you so much, Steph. I appreciate it. Amazing background. Now let's dive into the topic, which we actually were having just this quick conversation about going live, about how important is becoming having this multi-channel strategy. You know, of course, talking about expansion is not only now about going just to Europe, which we know the typical jump for a US brand, for example, is to go to Amazon Europe, but it's also about thinking about other channels. And when I talk about other channels, it's other platforms themselves, right? So I guess let's start with the very first question, which I guess you get a lot when it comes to talking to clients, which is, when is the right time to consider a multi-channel expansion for your business? Like, when do you think you need to take that jump? Yeah.
I think from the moment that you realize your advertisement budget is no longer in balance with your sales. Because Amazon is still by far the largest sales channel. So, I mean, here's Amazon, and somewhere far, far away is the rest. But the problem is with Amazon is what I liked about Amazon previously is that if you've got A, B, or a C brand, you had the same opportunity to sell on Amazon. The product page format is the same, 5 pages, 5 bullet points. So if you had a good product with a good description, then you would automatically start generating sales, because the consumers would say, I don't need this A brand. This B brand is doing exactly what it says, but even lower the price or the same price. So everybody had the same opportunity.
Yeah.
Nowadays, Amazon is like, the traditional retailers, like 20 years ago, when you went to the shop, you only saw 5 big brands in the shops and maybe in the corner a B brand. That's not, again, back happening on Amazon. Only the big boys that have the money are able to really survive, because they basically buy the market. So I think for a lot of, let's say, non-A brands, it is the next growth phase is basically the competitors of Amazon.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to making the decision about doing this multi-channel expansion, of course, it's also making the decision about which channel to do the first step into, right? Because let's be honest, in the US, you have Walmart, Target, and Europe, you have many other platforms as well where you can do this job on into. So when it comes to making the decision, like how you go about making a reasonable um, basically decision making in terms of what is the right marketplace after Amazon, which is my main one, to move into that would make sense for and get a ROAS back on my money, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, as a sort of a sanity check,
Yeah.
because with Amazon, we all are a bit, how to say it, there's a luxurious perspective of tools available that can recognize the size of the market, what kind of sales the competition is doing, etc. With other marketplaces, you don't have those tools available yet. So it starts with some basic research. What's the total size of the company, right? Do they do 500 million revenue? Do they do 5 billion revenue? Then, which categories are they strong? Because in some categories there is nothing happening. You can quite easily recognize that. So
Yeah.
normal, if you look at the 100 marketplaces that are there in Europe, probably a top 20 for most of the product categories is enough to really start basically doing some good business. And those
Yeah.
top 20, you then decide on the market position, the revenue in general, and the category strengths in the sense of how much are they promoting, how large is the catalog, etc. And from there, you're able to recognize the little bit old school way of Amazon. Who are my competitors? Can I win on content, price, or on quality? And from there, you can start recognizing, okay, from the 20, who are my top three? And
Yeah.
then basically start calculating back or planning back, okay, what do I need to have in-house to be able to start supplying those marketplaces?
Awesome. And when it comes to doing the jump into these marketplaces, I guess you also get a lot of the question about which are the pros that I should be doing the jump with, right? Like, especially a brand that has multiple products within the catalog, sometimes could be challenging about which one to prioritize, especially on the logistical side about how do I develop my inventory to basically now give it a try to Walmart, for example, or give it a try to X platform. So when it comes to the decision making within your business about choosing which product to use as as a tester for new marketplaces, would you agree maybe the best route to go is to go with your hero products, or you're more the type of person that will go right and going with the hero product is what the data says? Like, what is your take on that when it comes to expansion? Yeah.
Well, would love to say, for every company it's the same, but it's not. But what we also always do is we start with the top selling items, because that doesn't really only mean that there is enough stock, but also that there is continuously flow of stock.
Mm-hmm.
If you start with products that they don't buy too much often, in case, for example, the sales would increase, then they're not really prepared on having a recurring business. So
Yeah.
we start with the market research on the top sellers, see if those top sellers make sense. In case they don't make sense, obviously, then we have the next batch. So often what we do is we basically cut the whole catalog in three batches: top sellers, selection B, and let's say selection C. And from there, we basically plan what we think is the most realistic way to start promoting and generating revenues.
Very good. And I guess something that I'm sure you encounter a lot is that once you go through all this process and you decide to go on a specific marketplace, we could also argue that other decision you have to make is how you adjust your economics when it comes to that specific marketplace, because let's be honest, the expenses are going to be different, the competition is going to be different, the cost per click. And I see this a lot of times, like people think that because you have a profit margin of, let's say, 30% on Amazon, that will guarantee you have also 30% on our marketplace. But that's completely not true. It's going to vary significantly. And most likely, you, from experience of doing this with multiple brands, you usually see brands that have different economics when it comes to the marketplace, different profit margins, and so on. So, what is your take on that? How you navigate that complexity of having different price points? Yeah.
Well, If you've never done it, it's complex. If you did it like
Yeah,
we've been doing it for 10 years, it's not that complex because we basically have Excel sheets of, let's say, spreadsheets where you put in the data and immediately
yeah,
it shows you per product, per country, and per channel what are your receivables.
yeah.
Because obviously you need to understand your margins. You want to have if you have the leverage and still decide in which market and for which products you want to sell. You focus on one side, obviously, with the high sellers, but also the products that are most profitable. Profitable from a perspective that you have more margin to spend on marketing campaigns if the marketplace offers that tool in general, or is just the profit itself. So when you look at, if you ask how we normally do it, it starts with, okay, understanding where is the biggest market, right? Because in the end, everybody wants to make revenue, top revenue.
Exactly.
That's basically what everybody is constantly looking at. How much money can I make from a revenue perspective?
Hmm.
Because if you maybe have one channel that sells a bit with the highest margin, market size, in that case, say revenue, and then we start calculating back, okay, what kind of operation do you need to have set up? What are your warehouse costs? What are your logistic costs? What are the commissions? What are the average returns in your category? What are the return costs in that specific country? From there, you take all kinds of averages until you have a good idea what you are receiving back per product, per market, per country. And then you can
Hmm.
start again looking again at the top view from, okay, we started with these 20, these 5 are not suitable for Austria, but these 15 are good for Austria. But the other product for France, everything is good. Sort of a soft launch, how we often approach
Yeah,
it, to start teasing, testing the market with low operational pressure, no risk on, let's say, losing money, and from there basically start building. Because also what
yeah.
everybody always says, okay, e-commerce is fast money. Huh? Look at Trasio, fast money, billions in it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're gonna blitz scale, and then you actually figure out it's super complex, and we are burning money on every part of the business. And for bigger companies,
Exactly.
they can have a strategical reason to be a top leader. But the most of the company owners I know, actually, they like it when they make money, and they don't like it when they don't not when they are losing money. And for us as a company, it is also, better to really talk to somebody that really feels the win or the loss. So from that perspective, we are always trying to find a suitable way with also the entrepreneurial approach. Like I said, we are also entrepreneurs. We are not an agency that sells hours. Our really job is to make sure volumes are being pushed towards our operation and that everybody's making money.
Awesome. So now, when it comes to this expansion, I guess throughout your years of experience in the field, you have identified some patterns. And what I mean by patterns is that certain regions and certain marketplaces tend to be the ones that give you the highest rate of success when it comes to expansion, right? So my question is basically for all those sellers basically watching this and listening this episode today, like, have you identified certain regions and certain marketplaces that basically once you're kind of established on Amazon, those regions and marketplaces would definitely be the next phase into your journey? Like, have you identified certain patterns that usually work after Amazon or consistently?
Well, let me address 2 points. If you're thinking you can buy a Lamborghini because you are selling on a marketplace, forget about it. You're not going to be rich, and you're not going to have a 4-hour work week from Thailand. That's probably
Exactly.
not going to happen. You have to work all day, every day, think, watch the market, invest, lose money, learn again, and start over again.
Exactly.
And then maybe in 5 to 10 years from now, you're able to make some good money.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the first point. Then the second
Very
point,
important.
I think in every country there are some channels that are really developing quickly. And
Mhm.
that's often what you see if when a market, let's say a sales channel is developing, and they do it really fast, they're going really with hundreds of percent per year, you know something is happening there. So as an example, to go back to Amazon, when Amazon launched Amazon Business, you
Mhm.
already know it's going to do something. Because if a company where a million people work and does a billion revenue say, we are going to invest to make the
Exactly.
product category professional wear big, there's going to happen something. Same as when you see there is going to be an investment round in other marketplaces and they say, we want to increase our furniture or we want to increase that. There's an opportunity there because they are going to hire people, they're going to invest. So for sure, there's an opportunity also there. If you're in a luxurious position that you don't have a preference for which product or which category, and you basically want to start from zero, find anything that doesn't have a plug, one, and it doesn't need any fitting, and people, let's say, rebuy every year or every 2 years because all the products is used or the design is no longer really suitable. And then it all sounds a little bit, yeah, that sounds really vague to me. But if you want to start a business, make for yourself, and you're in a luxurious position that you don't have a preference, like I just said, you can make for yourself a sort of a SWOT analysis, sort of a funnel. Okay, so every time when you think of a product, it goes through your funnel. Can I make enough margin? How much returns are happening within this category? And then every time you basically put 100 products to that funnel, and then in the beginning you have a 50% success ratio because you don't know how our e-commerce in general works. Then you have some experience, so you can recognize, no, it doesn't work like that. There are returns, or people complain, or the margins are too low, or there's a lot of advertisement budget necessary. Then you're able to really improve your funnel until you actually have a really good flow. Let's say not a flow, but let's say steps before you basically end up with a product saying, okay, if I put 100 products in it, only 2 actually have a chance to succeed in because I really checked on all those different levels. And then you actually know you can make some money for the next few years.
Very good, very good. I
Does
love
that
the
make
fact
sense, Vincenzo? The
100%. 100%. I what I love about your approach is like it's all about the perspective of giving the priority to profit first, because I think the big mistake we see a lot, especially a few years back when everybody was only focusing on scale, revenue, but then the numbers were red all over the place. But the fact that you go now on a more methodical way, making sure first you build the foundation and build on top of that, I think is a very it's a very valid approach, and I 100% agree with them. Now, when it comes to this, we also need to be mindful that when we start expanding to other marketplaces, uh, one thing that people finds very difficult is also understanding how to understand the consumer behavior on that specific market, a specific region. Because if you come, for example, from the US market, from Amazon USA, and you expand to Amazon Europe, especially taking consideration that there are so many different countries, so different languages and cultures, you need to basically attack the customer from different perspectives. So I guess my question to you, with this quick intro I'm basically trying to make, is like, when it comes to international expansion, are you a big believer that you need to have local people working for you on those specific regions, or you could realistically do it yourself from, let's say, the USA try to enter the European market? What is your take on that?
Well, I'm making this call from Tuscany. Well, I'm from the Netherlands because I attract people from all over Europe because I don't believe in a European strategy. There is only local. If I would be from the Netherlands or from France and I started selling in the US, I would have no idea what holidays there are, which trends are going on, how people are behaving, etc. But it goes even a lot further, right? So if you would translate keywords, which often we work with US companies a lot that want to go into Europe, and then they say, oh, these are the top key phrases. And I say, well, if you then translate it like that, that's not the way people look for that solution in that specific country. So that's one thing. So you need to have a local that does the research. Then secondly, you have the uniform approach. If you work with 5 freelancers, they're all going to look at it from a different perspective. So what I always say, make sure those people are all sitting in one room and that they actually look together, what are the benefits, what's the brand story, and from there you have a uniform approach, but still with a localized activity. Then you're able to succeed, because otherwise, for sure, the local consumer will recognize that you are not a local player, and a lot of, let's say, sales is influenced with the trust that you're able to buy it from a local company, so you can easily return it. The customer spot is in the same language, etc. So yes, after doing this for 12 years, you need to always focus on the local experience. You can look at the operational from a central perspective. That's something you always need to consider. It's not that you need to put a team in France or Italy or
Exactly.
Spain. That's not what I'm saying. You can have a European, let's say, operational setup, but the
Hmm.
approach and the marketing plan and the research in general is always country specific.
Yeah. Yeah, super important. I strongly believe that localization is a must. And I bet you see this mistake so many times, even when shopping. You see people just using Google Translator, and it's such a big mistake because sometimes the direct translation doesn't really reflect the right meaning or the benefits. And let's be honest, like local people refer sometimes to products on an informal way, what we call slang, and if you don't have the local people to understand how people talk that on an informal way, like you're not basically targeting
You
the
recognize
avatar.
it.
Yeah,
But I also
exactly.
see it, I mean, obviously Amazon, for example, but also other marketplaces say they check on it, but they often don't, right? You have an
No,
A plus page, and then in the picture you have the 5 bullet points, and then the 5 bullet points are English. Then I already know a German is not gonna like it. I
exactly.
mean, they see that, and then obviously there's a German company advertising on the same page that is 100% look and feel in German. So yeah, that obviously I don't know. So I still have to explain to people who do you think the consumer will buy with the English bullet points or the German? And then when I say it, they say yes. I say, why don't you do it? And then obviously it's often a sort of a comfort zone, right? So they just try, test it, and then I really look in the details of why something is succeeding, and then you basically come to the point that it's not a side project. There's a lot of competition on
Exactly.
Amazon. 2.5 million sellers active in the US, 1.1 million sellers active in Europe. So that's already a lot less. So the competition is less because it's also shattered over 9 countries. But it doesn't mean that in your category you don't have 200 local heroes that actually speak the language. So if you come, for example, from the US into Europe, you have a big benefit that you can bring a product with 5,000 reviews in a country where no other product has 5,000
Hmm.
reviews, because that doesn't really happen in Europe that much.
Yeah,
You immediately are foreseen as a big leader. But if you then don't finalize the local details, then at the end, you're not going to win.
exactly. And now, when it comes to this expansion, of course, there's a lot of complexity that sometimes comes with that. Like we're talking also on the logistical side, and also the compliance and the legal side. So I guess from that perspective, I'm sure a lot of people get overwhelmed with that, especially when you tell them, like, if you want to do the whole of, let's say, pan-European program with Amazon, like you need to be compliant with so many different countries at once. So what is your advice when it comes to like how long you should give yourself in terms of time approximately to prepare for this? Like, are we talking, like, let's say I want to jump, if I want to launch to Europe, I need to give at least 6 months to be compliant and setting everything, or what is your average time frame to do an expansion? I know it's a difficult question because
No,
so many
it's not
moving
that
parts,
difficult. I mean,
but
if you're a company that has a very large catalog, come from a microwave to shoes, and you're the
mm,
manufacturer, it's going to be complex. If you have product in the same product category, often it's much more easy to go to the compliance talk. Also,
mhm,
if you work, for example, with white label manufacturers in China, for example, they often already have the certificates. It's just you need to make sure that everything is registered in Europe. So that
mm,
whole process can take a few weeks to a few months. It's not that difficult. And once it's only not difficult when you outsource it to a specialist. If you need to start figuring things out, forget about it.
awesome.
And also that's not the cost, right? So you want to set it up and you are there. Um, uh, but so yeah, you need to invest, and yes, it takes you several months to really start figuring things out, and a lot of you can't just hire one person that manages it, because that one person doesn't understand logistics international and accountancy international and compliance and marketing. That's just
Exactly.
not going to fly. So what
Yeah,
I advise, as you, for example, US company, work with a project group, make different people responsible, one project leader that oversees it, and then you're able to, let's say, with some basic understanding, really develop something good.
Awesome.
But you need to, sometimes I talk to Americans and say, oh, I wish I had the opportunity to understand, to be back in time, and I would start selling on Amazon 25 years ago. And then I say,
yeah.
Amazon Europe, you are in exactly the same position, and now you actually have the experience from a market perspective and how the whole business in general worked. But you can't expect to go from 0 to 100 in the same month, right? So it will take you some time. But if you invest in a few years, you're going to have a good business. Why? Because Amazon Europe is growing 40% faster than Amazon.com. And to give you a little bit of insight, Amazon US has how many users? Like 250 million or something like that.
Yeah,
I'd say whole US live like 300 million.
Exactly.
And you have Germany's 80 million, UK is like 65, France is like 60, Italy is like 60, Spain is like 60, Poland is 40, Netherlands is 80, Belgium is 12. I mean, we are almost doubling in size versus the US market and are increasing quicker the revenues than Amazon.com. So you are exactly in the same position, but you need to understand you can't do it with your current team. You need a new team with new experience and a local presence. Then you are in a luxurious position as you were 27 years ago if you would be the first one selling on Amazon.
Exactly. So in conclusion, stop the excuses and get to work. That's basically.
Yeah.
Now to conclude, exactly. I guess now my final question is, taking consideration all these amazing insights you've been sharing with us today, like I bet sometimes people also wonder, like, how do I measure the success of this? Like, I'm sure sometimes you do the expansion and doesn't work, and you need to, retreat and regroup and launch again. So I guess what I'm trying to say with this is, like, how long you give yourself in terms of time. I know this is also gonna vary depending on your budget and your mission, but overall, I'm sure you have a time frame. Like, let's say I jump for the first time in Europe, like, how long you give yourself to measure if you're actually going to be successful or not in that region? Yeah.
I think after 6 months, you're able to recognize the revenues you will be doing in the 6 months after. But the first 6 months are too early to say something about if you're able to succeed. Then also keep in mind that some products will sell in France, some products will sell in Italy, and that's fine because you're diversifying risk and opportunity. And then in general, it takes you up to a year to really understand the market. So you need to be aware that you need to start invest with the objective to say, I want to reach my break-even level, for example, after 12 months. If you have that in mind, then you can succeed.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Steph. So, yeah, I mean, with this, I think we touch on very interesting topics and insights regarding, multi-channel expansion. I'm sure people is going to have many more questions for you, which is why I want to give you this last minute so you can tell us more about, how people can actually get involved with Operator One. I know you guys, this is basically what you do. This is your bread and butter. You specialize on this. So how people can get in contact, ask any questions if they have, and also explore how to expand with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. So we have a very easy domain. It's o1.eu.
Yeah, nice. Very good domain, by the way.
Yeah, I spent literally hours and hours on auction sites to find a good domain. But now I have a two-character domain, but basically not happening. So O1 stands for Operator One.eu, Europe, because we are the European operators. So basically, brands, if you're from the US or from the UK or anywhere else, the only responsibility that you have is making sure we have stock. You ship to one location, you invoice to one location, and we are responsible end-to-end in cross-border sales. So like I said, so we have a very easy domain. It's o1.eu. We act as an importer record and merchant of record and everything in between. So basically that means if you're from the US or from the UK, you only need to make sure that we have stock, and we manage everything end to end in up to 27 countries and up to 100 marketplaces. So if you want to scale without too much hassle and do it directly on a professional level, you can work with us. We do this whole process for 5% of the GMV and minimum monthly retailer that starts at 1,800 euro per month. And if companies are interested in scaling, check out the website. There is a free market research that we can do for you. Just leave your email address and I'll get in touch and see what we can do for you.
Awesome, Steph. So thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure
Okay.
to have you here on the show, and definitely have you. Looking forward to having the next ones to keep discussing amazing things such as this. Yeah. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vincenzo.
See you in the next one. Bye bye.